Long ago, in a region thick with cedar forests and rolling hills, there stood a secluded shrine renowned in hushed, half-forgotten lore. Cherry trees lined the approach, their blossoms drifting in the wind like pink snow. A single stone lantern marked the heart of this sacred place, its surface worn from centuries of reverent touch. The villagers in the surrounding countryside rarely spoke of it openly, for many believed it was guarded by a supernatural being who granted wishes at a terrible cost. In the nearby village of Okasato, most lived humble lives of fishing, farming, and raising families. But rumors, unspoken or whispered, about the local guardian spirit never completely faded. Some said it was a nine-tailed fox, a kitsune of extraordinary power, capable of conjuring illusions and shaping fate as easily as breathing. Others said the guardian was an angry demon that devoured the souls of those who trespassed. Despite the cautionary tales, a few travelers still made their way into the forest, driven by desperate hopes or haunted by old promises, seeking the legendary lantern in the heart of the blossoms. A young woman named Kazue had heard the story from her grandmother. Late at night, by oil lamp's glow, her grandmother would recount the legend of the mystical lantern that sparkled like a star, guiding lost souls to unearthly answers. Kazue had always listened with rapt attention, eyes shining with wonder. She once asked, "But grandmother, if the lantern truly grants wishes, why does no one ever talk about the wishes they made?" Her grandmother's gentle fingers combed through Kazue's hair as she answered, "Because they must have realized the price they paid was too steep to share." Years passed like a soft breeze, and Kazue, now 20, found her family in dire straits. A devastating storm had swept through the valleys and fields, decimating the harvest. Her mother was ill, her father's despair growing with each passing day. With no coin left to pay the village doctor and no means to repair their damaged fields, hope was scarce as winter approached. Memories of her grandmother's tales returned to Kazue. A single hidden shrine in the deep forest, guarded by the lantern's keeper who could grant impossible wishes. Gazing upon the withering flowers in her garden, she made her decision. One moonlit night, she set out. The path to the shrine was not marked on any map, for the old stories claimed only those driven by true desperation or guided by fate could find it. She walked past the silent huts, following the rustle of leaves in the faint wind. The deeper she went into the forest, the more the world seemed to change around her, as though she were stepping into a realm just beyond reality. The glow of fireflies drifted in spirals, illuminating the gnarled roots beneath her feet. A gentle drizzle fell, the droplets turning silver in the moonlight. After hours of navigating the dense overgrowth, Kazue arrived at a small clearing. There, the cherry trees were in full bloom despite the season. Pale petals blanketed the ground, glowing pink and white under the moon's gentle beams. At the center stood the stone lantern, weathered but dignified. A relic from another age, its interior flickered with a weak flame, even though no oil fed it and no mortal hand tended it. Kazue stepped closer, her tremulous breath fogging the air. She knelt, bowing her head, and murmured a prayer for her family. Then she looked up, half expecting the guardian spirit to burst forth. But the clearing remained silent, except for a soft breeze stirring the blossoms. In a moment of doubt, Kazue reached out to touch the lantern. It was strangely warm to the touch, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. She closed her eyes and whispered, "I wish for my mother's health to return. I wish for prosperity to find my family. I am willing to pay any price." The lantern's glow intensified, and the wind exploded into a sudden gale. Petals danced wildly around her, as if in a spiral vortex. The flame inside the lantern brightened, forming the outline of a fox with multiple bushy tails swaying behind it. Kazu's heart pounded. She stumbled back, unsure whether to grovel in fear or stand in awe. Before her stood a being draped in a traditional robe, the pattern of stylized vines swirling across black silk. The figure's face was human, but possessed a certain fox-like grace. Narrow eyes that glimmered gold in the night, long white hair cascaded behind, merging into 9 elegantly waving tails. A silver mask was pushed up over the forehead, revealing an angular face that seemed at once both kind and dangerous. The kitsune regarded Kazue with an intense gaze and spoke in a voice that resonated like distant chimes. "You stand before the sacred lantern," it said softly, "desperate enough to offer anything for your wish. Are you certain you understand the cost?" Kazue's throat tightened, but her resolve was firm. "All my life, I've known hardship," she answered. "I cannot bear seeing my mother waste away, my father lose all hope. If there is a price, I will pay it." The kitsune's lips curved, an expression neither full smile nor menacing grin. "Very well. I am the keeper of the lantern's flame, entrusted with safeguarding those foolish enough to desire what should not be sought. Your wish will be granted, but remember, all gifts demand a sacrifice. Will you accept what fate unveils?" Shaken but resolute, Kazue nodded. The kitsune lifted a slender hand, and the lantern's flame blazed into a brilliant orb, singeing the air with raw power. Light engulfed the clearing. For one terrifying instant, Kazue felt as though the world were tilting, threatening to swallow her. Then it shifted back into stillness, and the orb vanished within the lantern once more. When Kazue opened her eyes, she found herself alone again. The kitsune was gone, as though it had been a dream. The lantern's flicker returned to its subdued glow, petals drifted in a lazy fall, and the hush of the forest felt both haunting and comforting. Unsure if anything had truly happened, she pressed her hands together in silent prayer and rushed home, guided by dawn's earliest light filtering through the trees. In the following days, miraculous changes came to pass. Her mother's cough subsided, and her fever broke. Word arrived that a distant relative had left an inheritance, allowing the family to hire laborers who restored their farm. Neighbors whispered that the gods must have favored Kazue's family. Exuberant relief filled her days. For a while, all seemed well. Blessings fell upon them like the petals in the hidden forest glade. But with each passing day, Kazue began to sense something else stirring in her home. Late at night, she would hear scratching at the doors or glimpse fleeting shadows in the corners. Sometimes, upon waking, she felt as though an unseen presence had been close by, observing her. She told herself these were tricks of the mind, remnants of her guilt or imagination. Yet her grandmother's words echoed in the back of her mind. They must have realized the price they paid was too steep to share. One afternoon, Kazuve, carrying a basket of groceries, was crossing the village square when she spotted an odd figure leaning against a shop's wooden pillar. The stranger wore a straw hat that partially concealed a pale face and had a small wooden flute tucked into his belt. The peculiar thing was the faint glimmer in his eyes, golden and strangely familiar. She paused, heart racing, but as soon as she tried to approach, the stranger dissolved into the crowd. It happened again on another occasion, and again in the fields, always at a distance, glimpsed briefly, and always vanishing. The nights grew longer for Kazue. Disturbing dreams of a voice calling her name or of foxtails flashing in a swirl of lantern light haunted her. Sometimes she dreamed she was standing in that clearing under the swirling blossoms, the lantern blazing so brightly that her vision burned, while the kitsune's voice whispered in her ear. "Remember the cost!" She would wake, drenched in sweat, her chest tight with worry. Months passed, and her family's fortune thrived beyond all expectation. Her mother had fully recovered and began sewing garments for the nobility. Such was her newfound energy and skill. Her father expanded their farmland, raising a new barn. Neighbors came to them for help and counsel, yet the mood in the household was uneasy. A sense of foreboding weighed on Kazu, as if a single misstep would open the door to calamity. She finally confessed her visit to the shrine to her mother, who grew pale at the revelation. Though her parents were grateful for the blessings of renewed health and prosperity, they feared what might be required in return. Kazue's mother clutched her daughter's hands with trembling fingers. If you sense the spirit's presence more and more, perhaps the time is near for the payment, she warned. But the question lingered. What shape would that payment take? Kazue could no longer bear the anxiety. One evening she left a note for her parents, donned a traveling cloak, and made for the forest path once again. She followed the same trail, guided by memory more than anything else. The moon was bright, and the canopy overhead swayed in a crisp wind. Oddly, the journey seemed shorter this time, and she encountered not a single snare or fork in the path. Before long, she was standing in the clearing, white and pink petals carpeting the mossy ground. The lantern shone like a solitary star, beckoning her forward. In a trembling voice, she called out, "Guardian of the lantern, I have come to understand my debt. Show yourself." She waited a heartbeat, feeling the hush of the forest press around her. Then, with a shimmer of light, the kitsune reappeared, robed in black with that silver mask lifted above golden eyes. "Child of desperation," the guardian said, voice echoing with a distant ring. "Why do you seek me now? Is your family not well? Are you not content with the gifts bestowed upon you?" Kazue bowed her head, clenching and unclenching her hands. "I am grateful, truly, but the price you spoke of weighs upon me. I sense your presence in the village at night, glimpses of your eyes on strangers' faces. Please, tell me plainly what you will take in return." The kitsune smiled thinly, folding its sleeves. "It is not a simple transaction. As caretaker of this lantern, I give form to wishes. Yet wishes distort the fabric of what should be. Like ripples on a pond, each disturbance must find its resolution. But you are not meant to know your fate until the moment arrives." Kazue's plea broke from her lips, raw with emotion. "I only wanted to save my mother. Must there be some cruel penalty for that?" The amorphous swirl of the kitsune's 9 tails created a mesmerizing backdrop. Mercy is not absent from the world, but balance is essential. For each life extended, another must phase closer to oblivion. This is not my doing, but the nature of the mortal realm's equilibrium. Confusion tightened Kazue's brow. "Someone else will die because of my wish," she whispered. A surge of guilt washed over her. If that was the truth, she wanted to undo it. "Take back the wish, I beg you." "That too has a cost," the fox spirit replied. "We cannot unravel a wish once it has taken hold without unbinding reality itself. The best you can do is await the cycle's completion." Tears welled in her eyes, and she collapsed to her knees on the blanket of blossoms. The implication was dreadful. Perhaps someone in the village, or a traveler, or even a stranger far away would bear the burden of this debt. She felt powerless to stop it. The kitsune watched silently as she wept, an unreadable expression on its angular face. At last, the spirit spoke again. "Take heart. I do not delight in suffering. I exist to ensure that no wish of the lantern goes unanswered. But heed this. You have shown courage in returning here. You may yet shape what remains of your fate if your resolve is strong." With that cryptic blessing, the kitsune vanished, leaving only the lantern's dim flame. After a long moment, Kazue returned home with a heavy spirit, uncertain what to do next. Soon after, rumors spread through the village that the eldest daughter of the local magistrate had fallen gravely ill with a mysterious ailment. Others whispered of random misfortunes, families losing livestock or valuables, crops suddenly dying. The village began to fret about curses and ill omens. Kazue's dread deepened. The more she saw others in distress, the more she suspected her own wish had set these grim events into motion. Desperate to alleviate the looming catastrophe, she resolved to seek out the kitsune once more. But this time, she planned to do more than merely beg or cry. She recalled something her grandmother had once mentioned, stories of humans who outwitted or bartered with fox spirits, forging pacts that rebalanced cosmic debts. Kazue scoured her grandmother's old trunk, rummaging through dried herbs, protective charms, and ancient scrolls. Hidden beneath tattered cloth was a folded piece of parchment containing an incantation said to bind or guide wandering spirits back to their rightful roles. Her grandmother's scrawled notes, though faded, were still legible. Speak it at midnight before the source of the fox's power. Wait for the unveiling of the highest truth. Then act swiftly. Unsure if it was real or only a legend, Kazue clutched the parchment and rushed to the forest at nightfall. This time, she found the clearing dappled by starlight. A wave of apprehension settled in her gut. The lantern glowed faintly, as though half asleep. She knelt and laid the parchment on the ground. Fumbling with her tinderbox, she lit a small cone of incense, the fragrant smoke curling around her. Taking a deep breath, she began to recite the words of the incantation. The air around her vibrated. The flame in the lantern quivered, growing stronger, and from its center emerged once again the regal form of the fox spirit. The kitsune's gold eyes widened slightly in surprise. "You dabble in dangerous rites, mortal. Is your desperation so bottomless that you would risk binding powers beyond your understanding?" Kazue continued chanting, voice trembling but unbroken. The wind picked up, her hair whipping around her face. A swirl of cherry blossom petals danced in the air like restless spirits. As she neared the end of the incantation, she glimpsed a soft glow surrounding the fox spirit, as though an invisible chain were wrapping around it. Sharp emotion flickered across the kitsune's face. Indignation, perhaps even fear. "Cease, foolish girl. You do not grasp the forces you manipulate." Despite her heart pounding, Kazue finished the last syllables. The air crackled with energy. A sudden crash of thunder rumbled high overhead. The kitsune staggered and sank to one knee, its amber eyes turning fierce with fury. The swirling tails thrashed, stirring petals into a vortex. Pain lanced Kazu's mind as a flash of images assaulted her, grand vistas of spirits weaving threads of fate, ancient shrines built and destroyed, 1,000 mortals' pleas for answered prayers, and the hidden toll each request demanded. The knowledge seared her skull, but she held her ground. Finally, the light subsided. The kitsune rose, eyes now simmering with cautious respect rather than wrath. "You have bound the threads of destiny to my own power," it said through heavy breaths. "Your family's wish has entwined you with the lantern itself. This cannot be undone easily." Kazue steadied herself, ignoring the throbbing in her temples. "I ask not to undo what has been granted, but to redirect the cost. The misery befalling innocent people in my village. If that is my debt, I accept it. Let it fall upon me alone." The kitsune stared, something solemn flickering in its gaze. "Are you truly prepared to endure such a burden?" it asked in a hushed tone. "Such selflessness is rare, especially for a mortal who only sought to save her mother's life." Kazu's voice quavered, but did not weaken. "I would not live with myself if others suffered because of my wish. If there is a way to absorb the consequences, then let it be mine." A slow nod. The lantern's flame flared brightly, and the kitsune lifted a hand. "So be it," it pronounced. "Whatever sickness or sorrow was scattered among others, it shall converge upon you. Your own life will be shortened, your vitality drained to repay the cosmic imbalance. You will bear all the misfortunes that may have befallen them." A wave of cold passed over her, like 1,000 needles pricking her skin. She gasped, but clung to the knowledge she was doing the right thing. In the recesses of her mind, she recalled her grandmother's gentle voice telling old folk tales about how love could conquer even the darkest cunning of fox spirits. Perhaps love could champion mercy as well. Night melted into dawn as the kitsune completed the rite. By the time it was done, Kazue could feel a heaviness in her limbs. An ache that resonated deep in exhaustion overwhelmed her, and she collapsed onto the soft blanket of fallen petals, drifting into a restless slumber. When she awoke, the sun was high. The kitsune was nowhere to be seen, but the lantern's flame still glowed. For a moment, the forest was tranquil, as if the land itself had sighed in relief. She pressed a hand to her chest. Her pulse remained, but it beat more slowly, and her breaths felt shallow. Standing took considerable effort. Yet she also sensed a profound calmness in the air, as though a chaotic storm had been stilled. Stepping out of the clearing, she trudged back to the village on wobbly legs. Along the way, she met villagers tending their fields with cheerful hearts. A group of children ran by, giggling over new flowers that had sprung to life. People greeted her with warm smiles. Rumors of sickness and heartbreak seemed to have vanished overnight like a passing nightmare. The world looked brighter, more vibrant, yet it demanded a steep cost from Kazu's own body. Stifling a groan, she managed to reach home. Her mother greeted her at the door with a radiant glow in her complexion, no trace left of the former illness. Her father was bustling about, healthy and strong. Their eyes widened when they saw how wan and tired Kazue looked, as if she had aged a decade in a single night. Still, she forced a smile, assuring them everything was all right. She didn't tell them the full truth, for they would only be consumed by guilt. Better to let them believe she was merely exhausted from a long trip. Though her body weakened by the day, Kazue found solace in seeing the village thrive. No more ill fortunes plagued them. Crops blossomed, families prospered, even the magistrate's daughter recovered fully. Life went on in a joyful hum, and it warmed Kazue's heart to know her sacrifice had made a difference. She would often wander through the streets at sunset, taking in the sights of people dancing, children playing, and neighbors sharing meals. These small wonders brought her a sense of peace. She knew her time might be limited. Despite her pain and fatigue, she felt a renewed sense of purpose, to cherish what was left and remind others to value their blessings. One evening, by chance, she felt a presence trailing her steps. Turning a corner behind the blacksmith's workshop, she came face to face with the kitsune once again. Robed in black as before, its eyes were no longer cold. They shimmered like liquid gold in the waning light, tinged with a gentle sorrow. "Kazue," the spirit said quietly, "your sacrifice has been accepted by the old laws. The threads that were frayed have been mended as best they can be. The weight of misfortune now rests solely on your shoulders. Yet, I sense in you a fortitude that refuses to break." Bracing herself against a wooden post, she responded with a faint smile. "I've no regrets. But if I may be so bold, why do you appear now?" A slow blink, and one of the tails swept across the ground. "I wanted to see how a mortal could shoulder so much grief and still remain unwavering. In ages past, few have shown such devotion." Kazue closed her eyes. "It's not just me, though. My grandmother's stories taught me that love and respect for others is worth any pain. I only hope there won't be more tragedy in the future. I know there will be others who seek the lantern." "They will come," the kitsune agreed, "and I shall be there as I have always been. It is my bound purpose to guard the sacred flame and fulfill wishes, no matter how foolish or wise." Kazu hesitated. Her voice emerged softly. "Then allow me one final request. Not for me, but for those who come after. Grant them clarity before they commit to the wish, so that the cost will not be hidden. Let them see, if only briefly, the consequences their desire might set in motion. Spare them blind." The fox spirit studied her intently, as though weighing the sincerity in her words. After a moment it nodded. "Consider it done. Though I cannot dissuade mortals from choosing to proceed, at least they will no longer act in ignorance." With that, the kitsune opened a folded fan, and a gust of wind carried a scattered flurry of blossoms that obscured Kazue's vision. When the petals cleared, the fox was gone. Only the hush of twilight remained, and the shadows of the village glowed in the warm light of oil lamps. Kazue sighed, exhaustion belaboring each breath, and found her way back home. In the weeks that followed, her health continued to wane, But her spirits remained surprisingly bright. The villagers around her recognized a certain grace in her demeanor. Though she never shared the details, they knew she had done something extraordinary for the community. Some suspected she was blessed by the kami. Others whispered that she bore a champion's heart. She accepted no praise, only offering soft smiles and warm gratitude for the kindness they bestowed in return. Visits, comforting words, discreet offers of medicine or rest. On one particularly warm afternoon, she walked slowly to the outskirts of the village, leaning on a carved wooden staff. There she paused to catch her breath. Far off, beyond the rolling fields, lay the forest that held the hidden shrine. She gazed upon the row of cherry trees in the distance, their blooms drifting lazily across the horizon in pastel shades. Her heart felt heavy and buoyant all at once, heavy with the knowledge that her strength was almost spent, yet buoyant, seeing the world so full of life and laughter. The simple gift of witnessing that joy was enough. Closing her eyes, she whispered a silent prayer of thanks. She had come to understand that true devotion doesn't come from expecting reward or fortune. It arises from a willingness to cherish what is precious in life, even if one must bear the weight of sorrow. In her mind's eye, she pictured the lantern's gentle flame and recalled the kitsune's final promise to reveal the consequences of each wish, to grant mortals the chance to decide with open eye. And so she smiled, for though her future was uncertain, she had managed to protect others from the brunt of her own misjudged desire. The old stories might one day remember how a young woman faced a guardian spirit, discovered the cost of a wish, and redeemed it through selfless resolve. The breeze carried the fragrance of blossoms, weaving remnants of legends back into the tapestry of the living world. Within that scattering of petals and wind, she felt a subtle shift in the air, as if invisible watchers acknowledged her courage. A gentle hush fell around her, and she sensed that perhaps the kitsune was near, silently standing guard. Let others come seeking the lantern in the future, she thought. Let them witness the bloom and its hidden thorns. Let them see the keeper of the sacred flame and the warnings carved into the stone. And if, in their determination or folly, they chose to accept the cost, may they have the compassion and the bravery to bear it without harm to the innocent. This, Kazui believed, was the most priceless wish of all, that humanity learn to care for one another more deeply than any desire for personal gain. She turned away and continued back to her house, unafraid of the looming shadows. Even as her strength ebbed, her spirit glowed with a light no misfortune could extinguish, a beacon akin to that legendary lantern's flame. And though she never again crossed paths with the kitsune in its regal form, she remained certain she carried something of its essence within her, an ember of shared purpose that would burn quietly, guiding others toward compassion and wisdom in the face of temptation.